Hi, this is Hibiscus and Hijinks. I hope you've got your tea. And I'm Lisette. I want to talk to you today about my shift in genres, subgenres, and a little bit about why I'm doing that, and a little bit about what that's going to look like. So let's start with my very Gen X Space the Final Frontier backstory. So growing up, my father was part of the Apollo space program. No idea if he was part of the Apollo 13 um, mess, but his working in the program and bringing home pieces of stuff that he was still working on, and what that looked like sitting around our dinner table, because my parents were crazy enough to act like we were adults and act like we should be able to carry on a conversation about things that meant something to them. It wasn't all just, what projects are you doing in school? It was, what projects are you doing at work, and how do they influence our society, kinds of things. Because of that, because of the way back when, I mean, they still are, but who watches them? Who's got that kind of time? Rocket launches were a very big deal. I mean, you had Walter Cronkite, and before that, Eric Sevareid, who would be sitting at a desk, and the rocket ship would, so you'd have the smoke and the flames, and it would lift off so slowly. Never understood why it was so slowly into the air, and it was must see TV, at least in my house. And because of that, and because I'm lucky enough to live in an area where we have, I live near a dark sky corridor. If you don't know what that is, it means that, in part because we're so rural, but it means that there are no streetlights in some areas, and there aren't, because you don't have this huge population center. You look up at the sky and it is pristinely clear. Even the clouds seem, hyper real. And I had a job where I worked a late shift, and I would come home from work, and it would be 10 o'clock at night. And even when it was freezing cold, I would stand and just stare up at the sky. And I couldn't tell you all of the constellations. I could pick out a few. Orion was a big one. I always could find the belt of Orion, and that tended to be more of a summer constellation. So that, always felt like coming home in some weird respect. It was just something that I loved, and that still, even now, sort of calls to me on a level that's just soul deep. The other thing that people should know about me is I'm a giant nerd, and have been pretty much since Jump. But I also am one of those people that just sucks up trivia. So I can tell you trivia about almost anything. I think I said it, before. There's Star Wars trivia, because I'm old enough to remember when the first one came out, and we waited in line to go see it in a theater because streaming wasn't a thing yet. Um, you know, I can tell you all about Star Trek trivia and all kinds of weird other, Doctor Who. Admittedly, I was more, because I live in the States, I was more a Moffat era um, Doctor Who than previous, but still, it's, that is my jam. That is the stuff that I love. And, for example, the James Kirk, Captain Kirk was a, Midwestern farm boy. Why his middle name is Tiberius, I do not know, but it was from the beginning. So I don't know. I don't know why. I just know that it is. Which always, you know, cracks me up. You know, if you aren't a Star Trek fan, don't ever wear a red shirt on a Star Trek set. It just means you're going to die. So why now? Why after 15 years of being an author and indie publishing, why, you know, and after I've got a contemporary romance series, I've got a Regency romance series, I've now got a Shifter series, I've got a couple of other romantic suspense standalones. Why now? Should I start writing sci-fi? It's a niche. It's a niche. It's not sci-fi romance is not huge. If I really just wanted to make money, I'd write romantasy. But romantasy doesn't call to me the same way. The irony is that romantasy and sci-fi romance deal with a lot of the same themes. You know, you get all the tropes, only one bed, you know, yada, yada, yada. But that's that big sort of world-ending stakes and the, you know, the fated mates, but not, you know, doesn't mean that they are happy about it. Doesn't mean that they like what's going on as far as that goes. So that why this feels right now is I am very much tired of trying to do things the way I'm supposed to. And I have decided that I want more joy and I want more fun in my life. And sci-fi fantasy is a big part of the way that I'm going to do that. For me also, you know, why did it take 15 years to get to this point? I think that I wasn't ready to sort of reveal myself. I've reached, you know, I don't know if anybody still remembers, you know, old lady hat groups. You know, I've reached the red hat period of my life. If I'm gonna, you know, I'm going to wear what I want to wear, and usually with a vest on top because I'm always cold. But you know, I want to have fun with it, and I'll get to that. So for people who have been reading my Shifter series or my Regency series, things aren't changing radically. You're still going to find all of the same things that you loved about my heroes and heroines and those groups that develop and all of that. That all is going to be there. We're just going to be out in space. So I hope, you know, if you are following me from those genres, I really hope you read it and see if you like it before you make any decisions. So the other thing that I'm doing differently is I was never one of those people that was like, oh, my heroine has to be 22 years old. I didn't start writing at 22. I was older than that when I started, as you may be able to tell from the gray hair. So, you know, my heroines always tended to skew a little older, but they tended to skew sort of mid 30s, which was one thing when I was 40 something. I'm older than that now. 35-year-olds are not much older than my child. So I'm certainly not going to be writing 22-year-olds. I can't even keep up with the lingo to make it, you know, sound plausible. But I'm consciously aging up my heroines. So they will be early 40s to mid 50s. Those are the readers that I want to reach but I also feel like, those are Gen X women, maybe a little younger, but Gen X women. And I feel like we're not addressing them, or if we are addressing them, they end up being women's fiction. It's all just so boring. Sorry. If you write that, I truly total respect. I love all authors and support all authors. But I'm going through that stuff. I don't want to read about it. So if you're over 40, odds are you're not finding yourself anymore. And you're certainly not finding yourself after tragedy. Have you suffered some? Sure. The Gen X women I know have survived divorce and cancer scares. They've got adult children moving back in. But they're badasses. And they have a take no prisoners type who want an alien or man who can be a partner. So many of these books that I read in romantasy, or even in contemporary romance, make me wonder whether or not these girls have ever truly been loved. Because it's like, oh, sweetie, no, honey, that's a red flag. Like, when he's like that, that's not a good thing. So yeah, we can talk about why I don't write dark romance some other time. But to me, the perfect place for this, the perfect place for writing these Gen X heroines, is sci-fi fantasy or sci-fi romance. Because who better to have in the cockpit than somebody who's already had their life blown up, and they're not going to be like, oh my God, they're going to be like, all right, out of my way, let me get shit done. Even if they don't know all the rules, even if they don't have all the tools, they'll figure it out. Experience is a superpower. And yes, Gen X women are cynical, and all of that life experience and all of those questions that we have make for a better romance. She's not a wide-eyed ingenue. She's a woman who knows what she wants and what she won't put up with. I don't care whether he may be the commander of a warship. She's not impressed. She's got her own thing going on. But what I don't want in this, and what I don't want for my Gen X heroines, is I don't want the movie of the week. Anybody else remember movies of the week? Movie of the week, kind of where they're just coping. I want this to be about adventure and agency. Gen X women are ready. All of the Gen X women I know are starting their third act. They aren't waiting for someone else to figure it out for them. They've raised the kids. They've worked the long job for too little pay. And they've put up with the guy who just wants to sit on the couch at the end of the day while they handle dinner. They're older and wiser and done with taking crap. In short, that's exactly the kind of women I want to hang out with. And those are the kind of women that I want to write. So let's talk a little bit about sci-fi romance and heroines. And I read a lot of sci-fi romance and have for a while. And I read quickly. So, I've plowed through writers' entire catalogs. And I love them. I love the big stakes. I love, the finding something new out there of it all. What I don't love, and maybe it's just because of the era that we're in, what I don't love is it being all so dark. It's a lot. And at the end of the day, I want it sexy. I write smart, sexy, fun. And I want the books I read to be smart. I can't stand stupid heroines. Himbos are a different story, but it can't stand stupid heroines. Don't want to have to deal with that. I want it to be sexy because yes, Mama likes her spice, and I want it to be fun. Every single book I write fits into that smart, sexy, fun bucket. Just because you have high stakes doesn't mean you have to lose the sexy. And trust me, the sci-fi writers that I read have sexy covered. They write hot, and it's great. What I'm missing is the humor, the fun part of it. Look, if the world is ending, I want somebody who can make me laugh because, that's how I want to go out. I want to go out laughing and filled with joy. As me, Elsie Giroux. But, if a guy can't make me laugh, I don't care how big he is. I don't care how much he can save me. Thanks, I can save myself. But how am I supposed to fall in love with him if he can't make me laugh? That is paramount to me. Doesn't excuse red flags, don't get me wrong, but it's paramount for me. So I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. This is a rough excerpt from one of the sci-fi romances that I'm writing. So the heroine has just been kidnapped and rescued by her hero. By the time he slammed me down on my feet in front of him, I couldn't stop shaking. My teeth chattered like I was freezing or going into shock. A dissociated part of me cataloged my symptoms. Shock seemed about right. The last 2 days, on top of the last 2 years, had been a lot. I must have looked ready to go under, because he grabbed both of my shoulders in his hands and shook me somewhat gently. Madeline, have no fear. I am your protector. No one will hurt you, not even me. We both huffed breaths in and out. He was still a deep mix of colors from the fighting. Both of us were at the ends of our ropes. That said, he continued, I will not tolerate you flouting my orders. His voice got louder with each word until he was shouting at the top of his lungs. Well, you know what? Two could play that game. Oh, yeah? I'm done with you. I've survived one lying, cheating, pompous asshat. I will not put up with another one. You can go to hell. He stared back at me, the air vibrating with the tension between us. You use this word asshat. My translator says it is a head covering for one's anal sphincter. You cannot mean that in this context. Head covering? Oh no, I was ripshit pissed at this man. He would not make me. The first giggle leapt out of my mouth. Unfortunately, once one got loose, the rest followed in a stampede I couldn't stop. I bent at the waist, laughing so hard no sound came out at first. Then it transitioned to keening laughter. I couldn't breathe. I was in danger of peeing my pants. Anal? Sphincter? Now the laughter was taking on a hysterical edge. When I looked up at Romanus, he was still standing there with his hands on his hips, and for whatever reason, that set me off all over again. I bent over, trying and failing to catch my breath. That was when I heard it. It was so deep it rumbled in my chest, like a freight train speeding past. My grumpy asshat commander was laughing. He took a long step toward me, and his lips crashed down on mine. See? That's exactly what I mean. You've got the stakes, you've got the sexy, a little sexy in this point. They haven't actually done it yet. But they're getting there. And you've got the funny. I mean, we say things that make no sense. So, the world is literally falling apart around them, but they can find a second to laugh at a bad translation of the word asshat. How are they, That's the only way that they're going to survive the next 10 chapters or the rest of the story. That is the heart of what I'm writing when I say smart, sexy, fun romance. It's the energy I'm bringing to every single page of this new series. So I'm going to ask you to do something. This is your invitation. If that was the kind of story you've been looking for, and if you're a fellow nerd who's ready to see a Gen X heroine take command, then I want to officially invite you to join the crew. This isn't about reading a book. It's about being part of the journey. First, make sure you hit subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now so you don't miss the next deep dive. But the real action is happening over on my Substack. That's the bridge of this ship. It's where I post the raw, behind-the-scenes director's commentary that you won't find anywhere else. For those of you who want to support this direct first rebellion I'm doing, head over to the boutique on PayHip. That's where you'll find special edition ebooks that include a codex I'm building on this world that I'm creating, and you'll find exclusive series lore with inspirations and background that are going to be attached to those books. One download, everything's there. If you want the key to my vault, where the codex will also live, you can find those freebies there. All you have to do is join my newsletter, subscribe to Substack. The password will be waiting in your welcome email. And that's it for this episode. Thank you for being part of this first episode. I truly appreciate it. I know you've got other things to do with your time, and you're probably just folding laundry, but still. Until next time, grab your tea, secure your rations, and I'll see you in the stars. Thanks.